Utah, give me 2.
What's up, everybody? Michael Govier, Benjamin Chase. It is the Palazzo Prospects Power Half Hour. That's right. We're going to talk about the Padres and the Oakland Athletics today. Two teams in very different paths in terms of where they're going as major league clubs when it comes to winning baseball games. And, Ben, you've done it again. You have brought aboard an outstanding guest, very knowledgeable, knows a thing or two about many things or two. His name is Marc, and I haven't heard it said out loud. I'm going to say it's Delucchi, but is it Delucchi or Delucci?
Delucchi, yeah, it's gnocchi.
Ah!
It's got that thing going on.
Yeah, I did make an assumption on that one. So, okay, Marc, great to have you here. You work at Baseball Prospectus, among many other places. What else do people need to know about you when it comes to baseball?
Yeah, pretty much. If you're a Bay Area sports fan, there's probably a team you like that I write about. I cover the Golden State Warriors, San Francisco 49ers, and San Francisco Giants for a few sites. Do the Giants over at Giants Baseball Insider with Fan Nation. And then, like you mentioned, I'm a contributor over at Baseball Prospectus. And then, I still freelance around from time to time, usually pop over at SF Gate. Is kind of the place you'll probably see me most when there's something going on there. But keep your eyes peeled. I tweet a lot and I write a lot, and sometimes it's worth reading, sometimes it's not.
It's hit or miss. Depends what day it is, right?
Exactly.
Well, let's not beat around the bush. It's supposed to be a half-hour show. We want to get right into it, Marc. And we did a coin toss before we started the show, Ben. And apparently the Oakland Athletics won the coin toss behind this curtain.
They need to win something this year.
I was going to say, we had to got to give them one win for the fan base.
You're right, yeah. Actually, that makes sense. So we're giving it to the Oakland A's. They're going to start off. We're never going to do it how we always do it. Got the top 3 we'll share, and then we'll give us the next big 3, and then we'll do the Padres after that. If you're familiar with the format, you know the drill. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for coming by. Make sure you subscribe and smash that like button. All right, Marc, let's get into it. Top 3 athletics prospects as you see it. Lay it out for us in any shape you want.
Sounds good. I'll just be short and sweet with it. I think Tyler Soderstrom's at the top for me. I don't think that's any bold pick by any means. And then it's Kyle Muller and then Mason Miller. It's the 2 very different kind of prospects as pitchers in this system. But that's my next 2 in this group. And frankly, again, I did my rankings preseason, so now we have a little more info. But even then, I was still really tempted to bump Miller all the way up to 2, and I just couldn't quite get across that threshold given given how high up Muller is, and again, a pretty consistent track record, even if again we'll get into that at some point. But yeah, that's my top 3 for the Oakland A's.
Okay, Benjamin, are you going to have any disagreements on these top 3 for the A's?
Well, actually, I do. Soderstrom is, I think, pretty universally their number 1 guy for most places, and for good reason. The guy's just got to stick. I mean, whether he plays catcher, which he's oddly playing a lot more catcher this year. I don't know if that's an intentional thing. The A's are trying to see if he can handle the position for flexibility down the road, but the bat's been there and has always been there, and it looks, it's going to be a major league quality bat. Now, star quality, I can't tell you that, but he's going to have enough power and enough contact to where he's a legit major league bat. The other 2 I have on there is Zach Geloff. I couldn't tell you the exact. He's got a brother who's also a real good draft prospect right now too, and so I should probably learn that name. But he's an infielder in their system, and Daniel Susak, who was a catcher that they drafted just last year, and so I kind of went hitting, and we'll get into this a little bit more, that the A's have a lot of pitching that's close to major league ready. And he mentioned Miller. Miller is a guy who was kind of struggling along in like D2, D3 baseball, lower level baseball, and couldn't ever keep on weight. He would lose significant amounts of weight during the year, and then found out as a 19, 20-year-old kid that he was diabetic, like type 1 diabetic. And since then, is managing his diabetes, has a healthy weight, and is popping. I think he's averaging like 99 this year. He's popped out a few 101s, and there are some people who said that he touched 102 this spring, and I just thought, well, I might be a little short on him right now. The stuff is absolutely amazing. Let's my big thing with him is that he's in my next big three. We'll preview that already, but he is really, really, really impressive as far as his raw stuff. And it's fun to watch.
He's so volatile, right? It's in a system, and again, like with the A's, that is a system that, again, weirdly doesn't have, it does not have, I can just be frank, I wrote this in my write-up for BP, it does not have as much upside as it should, given the amount of talent they have traded. They've targeted these like guys with exceptional tools, but ultimately as an overall package kind of are lower ceiling guys, higher flow, low ceiling profiles. And so Miller for sure is, like, again, part of the reason he bumped for me, but also part of the reason why, again, I think there's going to be deviations when you talk about after Soderstrom with the A's, is because it is this weird balance of, like, if you want high upside, you're going to have to take a lot more volatility and risk than you'd expect from a system that just given the moves they make, you'd be like, of course, they've had all these draft picks and, small market picks and, all these players they've traded for prospects. There's got to be some, like, high upside, like, again, like guys like Soderstrom, and there just aren't as many as there should be.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good stuff. You guys know something about this, don't you? I feel we got the right guest on here. Marc's joining us live. I got to say, follow him on Twitter. That's what you should always be doing. It's at MADDELUCCHY. That's right. Mad Delucchi. I like that. Is that how you would say that? Because that's how I'm going to say it.
Yeah, no. My initials are Mad. It's not, I like to say it's not how I am most of the time.
Yeah,
but,
I was wondering. I'm like, this guy's intense. He's so mad about the Warriors.
Yeah,
he thinks they can actually win the title this year. He's out of his mind. No, I'm just kidding. They actually could. It's still a long shot. But we're not here to talk Warriors. We're here to talk prospects, Oakland, and the Padres. All right, so we laid out the top three for Oakland here. Now, Marc, give us the goods. Who are the next big three we should be keeping an eye out for in the Bay Area for Oakland?
Yeah, so I got Ken Waldichuk here. Again, kind of a similar kind of place as with Mueller I mentioned earlier. Like, again, just, kind of in that higher floor, lower ceiling type profile guy who's had success in the upper minors. Again, one of the classic starters who, like, has the velo on the fastball, but the traits on the fastball could be the thing that ultimately makes him not get here, and where we look back and say maybe I'm overranking him a bit, is that, again, he has that mid-90s fastball, but the traits on it just kind of been hit and miss. Number 5, and if you're familiar with my prospects work, there's one kind of prospect I love, and that's a guy who can't play defense anywhere, but the dude knows how to hit, and that's Jordan Diaz in this system. Yeah. I got him at number 5. I just love me a guy who can rake, and he's got, to me, the best hit tool in the system. And then at number 6, a very different type of prospect in Max Muncy, very different from the other Max Muncy, a more kind of twitch athlete, who, again, posted, honestly, he hit a lot better in his first minor league season than I expected, given kind of his profile coming out. It looked like a guy who, the hit tool was going to take some time coming out of high school, but obviously had the tools to make the upside worth it. And in the Cal League last year, he posted, I think, a pretty close to an 800 OPS. And again, I think it's strikeout. The only reason he's as low as he is you still got that 30% strikeout rate. There's still issues with the swing and miss. I'm optimistic, though, because, again, he walked a good amount, decent overall approach. And, again, I don't think he sticks at shortstop long term. I think he's going to end up at third base. But still, again, a guy with some intriguing upside for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that. He's right here in my backyard in Lansing right now, Max Muncy is. He's with the Lansing Lugnuts, the high A affiliate.
I was just going to say he's going to hit some tanks in Lansing. That's absolutely.
It might take till May, but because Midwest League this time of year is just a little chilly, and the balls don't seem to fly in April in the Midwest League.
It's 83 degrees here today, Ben.
Well,
it's hotter than hell right now.
And I
fly
get
out
that
tonight if he's at home.
But I can tell you that here in the Dakotas, it was 90 on Tuesday, and then last night people were like bundled up in multiple blankets at a baseball game because it got down to like 40 and started to sprinkle at the very end. So it was a cold rain on top of the 40. It was a windy 40. So that's the upper Midwest this time of year. That's just exactly what it is. And so that's what the Midwest League's going through. But
So yeah, whatever you get's coming my way next. So yeah,
probably,
all right,
yeah.
Get ready, Max Muncy. It's gonna be cold next week. Get your mittens on. A couple of comments here. You guys could jump in the live chat. JJ says, "I like Miller a lot. 2 home runs in 3.2 says to me that he's still feeling out location." And he also says, "I love Jordan Diaz. That's a good call." Gnostic Baseball says, "Baseball fans of the Dakotas? Yeah, it's a real thing." They exist. Oh, I got to mention this one, too. Nice shirt, Govier. Yeah, this shirt says everything about America, I think. I don't think there's anything else to say other than that. All right, Ben, so do you agree or disagree with Mark's next big 3 for Oakland?
Well, on my next big 3, we kind of have, I mentioned that I would have Miller. And we've talked a little bit about Muller and Waldichuk. I kind of had those guys as 2 of a similar variety as lefties who are major league ready and both kind of have some similar issues as far as whether or not they'll be successful. But the other guy that I have on here is Lawrence Butler. And I will say, if you've ever wanted a guy to succeed, this is a guy you want to succeed because he won essentially the AFL's version of the Roberto Clemente Award, but essentially who is the best person that's here in the Arizona Fall League. He won that award last year. And everyone you talk to says, yeah, it wasn't even close because he is just that guy. He's just this guy that he goes out of his way to just be a great teammate and may not be an elite. Oh, lovely.
Thanks.
May not be an
elite.
May not be an elite ceiling guy. And frankly, his floor may not be that high. There's still some floor issues there. But, he's got A, a work ethic, and B, an attitude that is going to allow him to have more success than more than likely his base profile would.
Yeah, I like Butler too. Again, it's one of those things where it's like my sort of, as I was going through this A system, going through like a top 20 prospects, it was like, there's a lot of guys in the system I really like. It's just underwhelming because of my expectations for what I thought the A system would be given all the things going in. And it's like, Butler's a guy, I think I had him at like number 9 in my rankings. He was definitely a top 10 guy. And it's like, again, he's got big time power. He's an above average athlete. He has a good arm in right field. And again, it's just the question is, will he be able to make enough contact to tap into that power consistently? And again, that's not a bad profile to bet on. They've bet on it with, a decent amount, particularly from the prep ranks, but like Denzel Clark is another guy who I think is a similar kind of profile to Butler in this system as well.
Look at this. I hadn't heard this name in a long time. Anthony says, I thought that was Lastings Millage. Remember Lastings Millage? Oh, my.
Top prospect in like 05, 06, I think.
I think he only failed out of like 6 places, but that's...
he was given... Yeah, you're right.
He was given a lot of shots, but...
Guys, did Joey Estes for Oakland? Anybody want to chime in? Anything to like there? Or is this someone who's off the radar?
Estes is a guy I got to cover quite a bit as a Brave before he got traded, and... What you see different this last year is with the Braves, that fastball, it's not an elite fastball. It's it can touch mid-90s, but with the Braves, spin rates, shape of the fastball were tremendous. And for some reason, those backed off a lot last year comparatively. And don't know why. Don't know what's could be involved there, but that was one thing. And he is a guy who that big breakout season he had 2 years ago was heavily fastball. He located and used his fastball a ton. And granted, you got to have something else to lean on when you get to the upper levels, but to have the fastball take a big step back, well, that really put a dent into his arsenal.
There's been, I feel like, a weird, again, as guys have sort of started focusing on like optimizing their fastballs earlier in their career, there's been some interesting cases of kind of some of these pop-up guys who, since I don't think we have a good bearing of like why a guy loses the ability to like get that kind of spin and like, ideal, like inverted vertical, like at the top of the zone. Like Giants, a prospect kind of Ryan Murphy, who popped up a couple years ago. And then last year he dealt with some back issues and stuff, but I saw him play. The velo was still there on the fastball, but the other characteristics weren't. And the fastball was getting squared up all of a sudden. This year it seems to be a bit back, but like, yeah, I think that was kind of a thing where it's, again, because you've seen it once, it's like, hey, if that comes back, this guy can be a guy again. But it's again, I need to see it again, because I don't think we have a good understanding of why you would lose it.
Yeah.
If we don't think it's a sticky substance thing, which I didn't have, which again, it could be, it could not be. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it sure could be. You never know. That stuff is out there. Spider tack is everywhere. Garrett Cole looks like he's using spider tack again this year. I can't prove that, but the numbers kind of say otherwise. Look at this. JJ says Lawrence Butler looks like he has first base in his future for position. I feel like he stands too upright. Watch some of his BPs, and I feel he's got a lot of off-balance finishes.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's why you have that like north of 30% strikeout rate, right? Like that's again the kind of questions there. Again, I still think he sticks in at least left field. I don't think he ends up, or he might end up kind of being in that, like, again, as you can tell, I'm going to mention Giants a lot. That I know that, like, in that like Lamont Wade place of like can play first base or left field and kind of bounces around. Like that could be the kind of Matt Beatty type, like profile there. So, like, again, he is on the bigger side. That said, I still think he moves good for his size. Again, whether his size ultimately is kind of too impeding to be viable in right field, that I could see that happening. But again, he has the arm, and again, like I think he has the baseline skills that I think he'd be able to. We're not looking at a Pat Burrell situation out there if you throw him in left field.
Ooh, Pat Burrell. Wow. Ethan Salas, how good is he? Asked Jeff Whiteley, #1 Joshua Lowe fan in America.
That's a good transition into the Padres system, because he's one of the elite guys in all of, or elite rumor guys, as far as everyone that's seen him just can't stop talking about him. But he's, let's see him get some actual full season time.
I'm gonna spoil this one on my end here before the Padres. Salas, is not in my top 3 or next 3, and that's because I just have a rule: is that if we haven't seen a dude play and he's 16 years old, I just don't rank them unless I have. And I just didn't have at that point, because again, I was doing these in like December, January, hadn't quite gotten to kind of the swell of this. So again, it's like I could totally see Salas as #1 in this system by the end of the year. And again, all the things you're hearing sound like the things that get said about a guy who is a 18-year-old top 40-30 prospect in baseball. That's pretty much it. Like that's the trajectory here for sure. That's kind of where we're at. Yeah.
But being a Braves fan, I have Kevin Maitan worry all the time when I start to hear a guy who has never played a professional game and gets pumped up that big. And and I had the same worry with, when you started hearing it with Jason Dominguez, and not that he's actually a solid prospect, but the hype got built up so much.
I think he's underrated now because there was too much reaction.
Yeah. I don't disagree. And I think when we talked Yankees, that was one discussion we had. But I mean, that's just the issue, is these guys get so built up that it's hard to live up to that. So
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, he's not in my top 3. I'll tell you that. But I did have him on just because I thought we needed to talk about him. So I actually took off a guy and put Salas on there from the list that I had made when we started all this, because I just thought, we've got to talk about him if we're talking about that system. So
wow.
And the other thing, I was gonna say, and the other thing too, that again, it's ultimately, particularly with prospects, but especially with international prospects who we haven't seen in official games yet, it's information can only be coming from a couple sources. Right, meaning it's being leaked to reporters like us or other folks, and again, information gets leaked for reasons. Sometimes it's relationships, and people are just sharing it because they don't care about keeping the stuff private. But we're also talking about a Padres system that is thin, and a Padres system that loves to trade for elite talent and stars. And we have a guy with the Angels who might be on the trade block at some point in the fairly near future. All I'm saying is that the Padres have an interest in getting a guy like Salas, because the Padres don't have a lot of depth. They've traded a lot in the system. they have a vested interest in also making, if a guy like Salas starts being considered a consensus top 30 prospect before he's played an official game at the complex or before he's played a game of full season ball, that gives them a trade piece that, again, if they might be able to get into the Ohtani sweepstakes with a Salas and Merrill. Right now, I don't know if they could even, and so again, that's not to say, again, I'm saying this from the perspective of I don't have the information. I don't have the experience with this guy to give an eval. What I can say is I know the trends of how this goes. And so a guy like this, vast majority of the time, is going to be a really, really, really good player, a really, really, really good prospect immediately. That said, we aren't living in this objective vacuum where the information is coming from the same place, the same time for no reason. It's coming there because there's, again, teams like to use the media to try to build narratives around prospects, again, because it benefits them when they can package these guys and improve their value.
Yeah, look at his page. This is it. There you go, folks. It's 16-year-old kid, all right? So easy does it here. Not a lot going on yet. A lot of excitement, but slow your roll. Everybody slow your roll on Ethan Salas. So let's get into the top three then for the Padres here. The top three prospects as it stands on this date, Friday, April 14th. Mark, what do you got?
I got number 1, Jackson Merrill. Number 2, a man who I was shocked still had rookie eligibility, Luis Camposano. And at number 3, I got Samuel Zavala.
Disagreements, Ben.
We've got 2 of the 3 same. I am a big fan of Dylan Lesko, and even though he's still coming back from injury, I always get a little worried when a guy's a high-end high school pitching prospect, and a big reason why is because of an elite fastball. But if you give me a high school guy whose best pitch is a changeup, you got my attention. And that's Lesko. Lesko has, easily the best changeup in that class, and there were good arguments over whether he had the best changeup college or high school in last year's draft. And it's just, he does, and it's not like he doesn't have an excellent fastball too. He's, it's a mid-90s fastball that can touch upper 90s. And so healthy, he could be an easy top guy. Yeah, he's just not healthy, and I can understand why he may not be there for someone, because once again, he's not played a pro game, just like Salas. Salas is still not come on the field. Lesko, they just had a thing out yesterday that they're kind of hoping that he might be able. He just had a throw session and was hitting some 90s, and they were excited about that. Well, he's recovering from surgery, still likely not going to play until June, July. People overestimate oh my gosh, he's throwing 90 already, so get ready, he'll be back later this month. No. You've got a long road, hopefully, before, the Padres, if they develop him all the way, let's just put it that way, if they develop him all the way to the majors, this is a long road ahead. He's not going to be in the majors at 18, 19. That's just not happening. So, for one, he's already 19. So let's slow that roll and realize that, you probably got at least 2 full seasons of minor league ball that he's going to need, just because you got to get all that stuff together.
The reason I loved writing about these 2 systems for BP and get more in depth with them, and the reason I like that they're paired again today to talk about them, is because these teams, what they've done at the big league level have been opposites. The Padres have traded every prospect it seems like they've ever had in the past few years and gotten better. The A's have traded everyone it seems like they could and gotten worse. And I still think I'd take the Padres' top 4 prospects over the A's top 4 prospects right now. Let's Go was my 4, and it went back and forth. Again, you notice the trades the Padres have made when you get to 7, 8, 10, 15, 20. But finding a 20th prospect on this list was hard. But at the top of the system, and again, I think it's part of, I was talking about the A's have targeted guys who you don't necessarily have, to me, the upside profile, at least that I look for, and the Padres have. They always have, and that goes back to Preller's always approach was, give me big tools, we'll figure the rest out. And I got no disagreements. Again, Lesko, I can see reason for him to frankly rank anywhere in the top kind of 5 to 10 in the system because of what you get into. Yeah, again, you mentioned the fastball and changeup. He also had a 12-6 curveball that had like 3,000 RPMs. I mean, it's like there is 3+ pitches potentially in Lesko's arsenal. Like there is, again, obviously, there's ace upside. That upside is obviously very unlikely to get to because that's just the nature of the beast with prospects, the nature of being a high school guy who's coming off Tommy John and all these things. But like Lesko was in the modern age, and we're in a post Moneyball era. Granted, we're in a post Moneyball era at this point. But like he is the rare high school pitcher who, if he doesn't get hurt, could have gone number 1 overall in the draft. And I don't think too many people would have blinked an eye, which tells you something about how impressive the metrics were and how scouting and analytics community were kind of all on the same page. Yeah, this guy is one of the better high school pitching prospects we've seen in a while. And then obviously he gets Tommy John, and the Padres take advantage. He falls in the draft, and so they say we're going to capitalize and land him later for sure.
Woo! Hot heat. Let's go. 1 ring to rule them all. Look at this, folks. We've got 3 more to go. Let's get into the big 3, the next big 3 for the Padres here. Mark, time to hear the truth. Spit some game.
So yeah, I got Lesko here at 4. At number 5, I got another high octane, high volatility pitcher in Victor Lizarraga. And then at number 6, I got similar to Campuzano, been around a while. Again, I think his hit tool will be enough, although I get why other people would say he's a non-prospect, but I like Igwe. Is that Igwe Rosario? Infielder, probably gets pushed to second base, kind of, honestly, kind of like a right-handed Willie Calhoun kind of profile. Probably not quite to Calhoun's hit tool, but nonetheless, he's who I got at 6.
Ben, disagreements?
Well, I mean, this is kind of where that depth of the system starts to hit you.
Yeah.
And I guess just because I kind of took this as who are some names that folks may need to know, because if they pop this year, they're likely going to be names that get moved around at the trade deadline. And that's where I went with, I mentioned I had Ethan Salas on here, and I have Robbie Snelling also, another prep arm that they took. And he's actually shown out well in his first start. He had a really nice first appearance. And the other one I put on there was Adam Mazur. And mainly because, being a Dakotas guy, I had to pump a guy who came from South Dakota State, but then went to the University of Iowa and got drafted from there. But he is incredibly impressive compared to, I had a chance to see him when he was at SDSU. He was not this pitcher at SDSU at all. The raw stuff was there, but he's refined it so much in just 1 year at a Big Ten school that it's really impressive to see what he's done. And one of those guys where you might not say that he has a true plus pitch singularly, but he doesn't have anything that's below average, and he has for sure 4 pitches, and you can argue a 5th depending on how you want to classify his fastballs, because he knows how to spin a sinker but doesn't use it all that much. So, and he knows how to control. I mean, he's not a control artist by any means, but he's really sharpened that up significantly. So I mean, these are all. That's the type of guy that I could see him coming out, pitching really well to open the year, and then come July he's traded, because he's shown out really well been bumped aggressively to AA and shown out well in AA too, or something like that, and then now he's traded. He's on another system. So
yeah, the Padres aren't a system that's done this, but he's also a guy I could see if it came to it, if he is starting really well, gets to AA, that he ends up fast tracked in their bullpen by August, September if they had a need in the place there. I mean, again, I don't, I didn't have Snelling or Missouri in my top 6, but I had Snelling at 7 and Missouri at 10. They're both really good prospects. I like Snelling a lot coming out of the draft. Has the athleticism of being a former 2-sport guy. Again, I just love the Padres' approach to the draft. Is we're going to take upside, we're going to take risk with high school players constantly, and it's paid off for him really well. The question with Snelling is, can he add a little bit of more juice to that fastball? Yeah. And if he can get it, he has a really good curveball, and he's been around the plate. I wouldn't say he's not like a command type prep prospect by any means, but he's been around the plate. And then Missouri is someone who like Ben mentioned, if prospect development was linear and you took what he did in 1 year was it Iowa? Right?
Yeah.
Was that, yeah.
Yep.
1 year at Iowa, and you just copy paste that development again. He's a top 75 prospect in baseball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the leaps, like that's a bet on. It's like, we like this guy's makeup. We see how quickly he took to coaching and development when he got into this environment. We think we're going to take him, and he's going to take another step forward because we're, clearly this guy knows how to take advantage of more resources and knows how to capitalize on good coaching. And we think there's even more we can get out of him. That said, the reason I'm a bit lower on him is he took a big step forward. I still think what he showed was 4th, 5th round prospect for me. And there's that bet on the makeup and stuff that makes him a 2nd round pick, but I still want to see a little bit more before I'm kind of, I'm in that same place with some of the other guys in the system. But again, like whenever you look at a list, there's always a couple guys that you're like, I could look back at this and be very wrong in terms of this guy's too low. And like, he's absolutely the kind of guy when I have someone like Rosario, who does not have big upside at 6, where it's like, I could be looking back at the end of the year and Rosario's kind of looking like a quad A player, and, Missouri's their best pitching prospect or 2nd best pitching prospect.
Woo! Ben, this one's for you. JJ wants to know, would you say that Preller drafts like Alex Anthopoulos does in Atlanta?
I wouldn't. Preller he's a guy, and I think Mark mentioned this. He's a guy who goes hard after, give me big tools, and we'll figure the rest out. Snelling even, big time, curveball. That's, probably you could argue it was the best of the high school class last year. Lesko, huge changeup. Those are draft picks that they've recently had. Let's get these big tool guys, and if they pop,
I don't think the Padres have taken like a college player in the 1st round for like 7 years now.
And
it's up there. And again, think about, in previous classes, right? Think about all the guys who the Padres get, and no one expected them to fall that far, right? CJ Abrams was this way, right? Lesko only got to them because of the TJ. Like, Snelling was a guy who most folks thought would go in the 20 to 30 range, and then they sneak him with the overslot down to them. And I think the comp round or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So like, again, his approach is always like, he kind of low key plays it by board. Like he doesn't necessarily deviate too much from like consensus rankings. I mean, again, like sometimes there's a guy like Jackson Merrill, right, who was a pop up who they were all in on, and that has so far paid dividends. But no, it's like you said, it's all big tools. And again, I really like the approach that they've taken.
And I mean, the difference there, Anthopoulos tends to go good tools, but he goes for high wanted, quote unquote, ability. And I mean, a guy like Michael Harris coming out of high school, there were some tools as a pitcher, there were some tools as an outfielder, but everyone said, other teams that didn't draft Michael Harris said, best interview we had, was Michael Harris. That kid, no matter which side of the ball he goes, he's going to push himself. Vaughn Grissom was the same way. He'd spent years being Riley Green's, next up. All the scouts are coming to see Riley Green, and oh, by the way, we have this other guy on our team. And so he had just this push that I want to be so much better. And when we talked with Justin Henry Malloy last year, Michael, that's the quality of person that he is, and that's just something they really target, is these guys that have this kind of real hard push to be better, which there are things within that system that are well done as far as finding that within a person. You have to really trust and know your scouts well. And that's why you see the Braves kind of that 3rd round through 13th round. They tend to have a few guys pop out of there every year, which is why. It's not because they're drafting huge talent in that round. They're drafting guys who they get the absolute most out of their talent. So,
wow, that's well said, Ben. That's very good. Anthony has to know. Does anyone know if Aaron and they're not brothers? Okay.
No, Aaron was born in Northwest, either Oregon or Washington or something, but he went to school at the University of Oregon. But he was a United States born, and
Samuel's from Venezuela.
Venezuela, there we go. Yep.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I know he was an international signee, but So it would be very odd that they would be brothers, but
Also, I do want to say we kind of shortchanged Zavala a bit because him and Merrill were our consensus two guys in the top three. Again, Zavala is a younger, unproven guy, but God, I love that hit tool. Again, it's like when you have a guy who can, it's again like if he matures and gets power, there's a potential star. But like that dude can hit, and again, I can. If I'm picking a hitter, right? If you can pick one thing, it's like you're going to take the hit tool every time in terms to build a prospect around, right? Pitcher, it's going to be velocity because that just gives you such a baseline to build off of. Like those are the building block tools where if a player has that, if nothing else is there, that player is still going to get pro opportunities because that's that good, and that's where Zavala's at for sure.
The way they're set up. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
And that's exactly what has always kind of been Merrill's calling card too, is his hit tool, and he just seems to get everything else better every year. It's just you were talking earlier about prospect development not being linear. If you tried to take Merrill's jump over the last year, he would be the blankety blank number one overall prospect in the land.
I'm the low man at BP on Merrill. I think we had him at 11 on our preseason top 100. I had him like more in the 40 to 50 range because I still have a little bit of kind of, I still see like a DD Gregorius type kind of high end outcome for him where they're, I think, dreaming a bit. They dream a bit more on the approach and stuff. But no, yeah, absolutely. Like again, this was a dude who no one had heard of October the year before he is drafted, and then now it's like this guy's consensus top 100. And probably consensus top 50, top 40 very soon.
Yeah. Ooh, well, the way the Padres are designed right now and set up to try to win now, it seems like Zavala's a guy who could get traded. If someone's in love with him, he could be a package deal to add another arm, another hitter at the deadline, all kinds of stuff.
I think everyone on this list is, because I think Preller's going to try to do with Ohtani what he did with Soto. I just think I think he's going to. That's what I think is going to be interesting to see if the Angels fall out of contention this year. Which again, sorry guys, I'm betting against you. Because I think that's going to be the interesting thing, right? Is like obviously it's only a rental. But, there's going to be an element of like, but if we get him in the building, we're getting that exclusive negotiating window. And I have no reason to doubt that AJ Preller isn't. I mean, they offered Aaron Judge $400 million last offseason. I see no reason why they wouldn't try to do that. And it's going to be really interesting to see how all that plays out, because if you're the Padres, you don't have a lot left in the barrel when it comes to prospects. And there's some guys here who could be potential future stars. At the same time, it's like the Padres have shown, I don't disagree with them, build your team around stars, and there's no, Shohei Ohtani's the best player in baseball. And so it's going to be really interesting. Like I mentioned, like, again, if you're doing the like advanced numbers thing, there's no way in any world where you should trade, Merrill and Lesko and like Snelling for a couple months of Ohtani. But if that means you can sign Ohtani to a 10-year deal, or if you're San Diego, that means you get a World Series, is like, then you do, and that's where it's going to be interesting to see. Is there a point where Preller says, I won't, I'm going to have to stay out of this one, because I believe in Jackson Merrill. I believe in some of these guys to be impact players who extend our window even further.
But, I could really see that coming hardcore if they can't get Juan Soto to an extension. Mm-hmm. If they feel like that's not a possibility,
that's true, right?
They have one more year of arbitration with him. Yep. But if he says, after 2024, I am absolutely hitting the market, and I love it around here, guys, but no matter what, I am hitting the market. They could say, okay, well then, we're going to pivot and we're going to spend that $500 million somewhere else, or $400, whatever they were willing to offer to Soto. They're going to absolutely spin and pivot that money immediately to Ohtani.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And again, there's still, when we talk about, not that they need the money and other things, but I still don't think I've been saying all offseason is that the call that Preller needed to make was to call the Angels and offer Tatis for Ohtani straight up heading into the year, because I don't think the Angels could say no, and I think the Padres would be interested in it. But like there's just the thing is, like, Tatis, despite his contract, someone would take it at some point, even if they couldn't get a lot back, depending on how this year goes. Someone will take it. You know, he's been too good. He's still too young. And so it's like, you know, in terms of, again, not that I care about ownerships and money, but even in you're having that equation of like, well, but they spent all this money on these other things. I think Tatis is kind of that kind of chip that they could potentially also just, you know, kind of do a Marlins move and unload before the big salaries kick in that contract too. So.
Unload. All right. Well, we're going to unload this show and turn it offline. It's been a lot of fun. We talked about the Padres and the Athletics, the current top three, the next big three. We gave you a lot of insight. Ben, you're the master as always. Thank you for bringing Marc in here. Marc, this has been a real pleasure, man. You know your stuff. You're entertaining. You're informative. You do not bore me at all. Those are all positive. So I want to thank you for joining us here on the Palazzo Prospects Power Half Hour. Any farewell comments about yourself?
No, just thank you all for taking the time to chat with me. Ben, thank you for giving me a shot at Call to the Pen all those years back. That was like my first writing gig and got me into this whole mess. So, you know, so nice full circle moment.
That's how I knew Marc, because I used to edit his stuff.
Yeah,
so, you know, way back in the day.
You know, when my copy was even worse, Ben was the one who cleaned it up. So,
nice.
You know, great
cool.
appreciation. Always glad to repay the favor. But yeah, no, great time as always. Happy to come back whenever y'all need.
Oh, well, that's great. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Mad Delucchi. That's MADDLUCCHI. You can see it on the screen, but if you're hearing this in podcast form after the fact, I'm telling it to you. Of course, follow Benjamin Chase at Big Gentle Ben. I'm at MJ Govier. The show is at Palazzo Podcast, 2 L's.
Utah.
2 Z's.
Give me 2.
Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. For Marc, Ben, myself, everybody in the live chat, you guys crushed it. Catch you guys next.